When it comes to pickup trucks, this is kind of the daddy. Now, I know we just had the Volkswagen Amarok, which is a Ranger Raptor underneath on the channel. It starts from just over 70,000 euro. This version is spec'd up to 77,000 euro. Kind of similar vibes to the Amarok in terms of pricing, but this vehicle is that little bit more capable in certain aspects. It still can take 1,000 kilos on the back. It's about 625 kilograms on the payload. That will obviously reduce the fact that it's available as a commercial vehicle in terms of the tax benefits. You can tow 2.5 ton on it, however. But the most interesting thing about this Ranger Raptor and the Amarok, this is where it doesn't really compete, is this has a 3-litre petrol V6. Now, there's still a 2-litre diesel, but this has 288 brake horsepower and it sounds fantastic. It has an 850mm wading depth. There's no fancy sensors on board, however. BF Goodrich all-terrain tyres are standard. They work really well off-road, obviously, but actually, this is a pickup that you can drive in comfort on the normal public roads. Side skirts down the side, some shared parts with the Amarok, again, the door handles and things like that. It's quite a tall vehicle. It's well over 6 foot off the ground, and it's, you know, the length of it by Irish standards is pretty huge. Yes, it's not an F-150. If you're watching this in America, I know this is a baby, but by European standards, this is a pretty big vehicle. In fact, speaking of Europe, in Australia, there's a version with almost 100 brake horsepower extra on tap, and the only reason we can figure that it's not available here is EU regulations. So thanks, Europe. Great big towing hooks on either side. There's a tow bar as well. The difference between this and the Amarok I had, which is just, you know, obviously an optional extra, is the cover on the payload area. And that's automatic, so there's no more reefing things. What is also pretty cool is if you use your Ranger Raptor for tools or for charging tools, well, Ford have put a couple of ports here. So actually, if you're running out of power on a drill or whatever, you'll be able to top it up with ease. Something that is missing though, on the Volkswagen, there's a measuring tape along here, and it's not on the Ranger Raptor. In the back of the Ranger Raptor, there's room for 3, although it's a little bit tight in the middle seat. The angle of the bench is actually pretty good for your back. Ford have included cutouts at the back of the seats for your knees. There's a 3-pin plug and charging with both USB A and C. It is quite dark overall, but the little flashes of red help to brighten things up. And head height in the back of the cab is excellent. Plenty of colour inside the vehicle. Raptor on the steering wheel. Red inserts around the air vents. It's all very bright and colourful, and again just has a kind of a sportier feel inside the vehicle compared to the VW. 10-speed gearbox, exact same system. Same with the jog wheel for your different modes. You've got Baja mode on this, which just makes it sound fantastic. It's almost like a straight through exhaust. You've still got the Fox setup. You've got the live setup that can adjust the dampers, and you can cruise off-road in this at speeds approaching 100 kilometers an hour, and it will just get on with the job. And then you've got all these different modes. You've got a brilliant screen that gives you your front motion visibility if you are off-road. The locks that you can interchange here from the screen, so you've got to pull over to do that. And there's wading and rut mode, and there's just so many different things that can all be controlled, including the dampers on the suspension from the steering wheel. But then you've got all the luxury bits like the heated steering wheel and the heated seats and your climate control, and most of the bits inside are operated by this huge portrait orientated screen. There's a couple of physical knobs for your air conditioning and bits like that, but by and large you're using the screen for most things. And there's a bit more USB charging and a wireless pad going on back here. And these seats are really comfortable, full leather, really hold you in tight with the bolsters on the side. So I think most people will be happy enough sitting inside the Raptor, and obviously the view outside the windows is brilliant and the mirrors are huge. So kind of a really great inside setup, a lot more I suppose, a place you're going to want to sit in the front compared to the back of the vehicle, at least anyway. There are also some auxiliary inputs up here, so if you want to put headlamps on the vehicle after you've bought it, they're already wired from the factory, so no messing around. That makes life quite easy. If you're not in the mood or you want to leave the house early, there is a quiet mode. Now, you'll still hear it inside, you'll hear it a little bit outside, but that's compared to Baja mode, which is... And that's not just piped inside, that is actual outside noise as well. All that sound comes at a price. About 20 miles per gallon, 15 litres per 100 kilometres is kind of what you're going to see in this vehicle, and that's without having a lot of fun. So don't buy a petrol Ranger Raptor unless you have deep pockets. And although the Ranger Raptor can easily tow up to 2.5 ton, it kind of weighs that sort of weight itself. So it is a heavy vehicle, and it handles, you know, pretty well for a pickup truck. There's no doubt about that. But you do feel the weight of it. So, you know, it has its limitations. It's not low to the ground, it's not a sports car, but it does handle very well for an actual off-roader. It's kind of hard to not really enjoy that sound. It's just like, it is a bit addictive. Brakes are good, they're vented, so you should have decent braking capabilities, especially if you are hammering this off-road and then you quickly need to stop and you're doing that repeatedly. You're going to want to know that the brakes can stand up to the job. You can tweak all the different modes in the steering, so if you like it kind of firm and heavy in a kind of sporty setting, you can do that. You can make it a little bit lighter if you wish, and it's a nice chunky leather perforated steering wheel. Now, it's not to say that the BF Goodrich tyres are soft on main roads. You know, there is still a little bit of just bounce, if that's the right way to describe it. Same as the Amarok, but far better than some of the cheaper off-road options, some of which are now electric these days, but the driving surface handling is just not comparable. That just sounds great. And you can imagine that with dust and sand and maybe water and mud slinging behind you as you're gliding over terrain. And yes, you would be getting chucked about. That would just have to happen, but it would still be a very fun experience, I'd imagine. And I wish there was somewhere that I could bring this Raptor today just to put it through its paces. In fact, here's one now driving towards me. It's grey, however, though, so not as obvious. I will have the GR version of the Toyota Hilux on the channel in a couple of weeks' time as well. So if you're into your pickup trucks, and we've tested now the Amarok, the new version, now the Raptor, and then the up-to-date version of the Hilux, and they are probably the holy trinity of off-roaders. If you're after one that's gonna last, after one that's good to drive, they're kind of the main three ones that you want to be looking at. It's not what you expect an off-roader to sound like. There's a G-Wagon, and that doesn't sound even as good as this does. And ramps, it's like, what ramps? You just plow on down through them, and you know, it is a great all-rounder, still pretty comfortable to drive, albeit for an off-roader. And I think it's probably the one I'd go for.